Hi,
Hi, Maya.
how are you?
Doing all right. How are you?
Good. Did you
It's
say you're at your mom's house?
yeah.
How's that going?
It's great. I kind of moved here out of necessity, but it's been like a very deeply spiritual process of healing and recovering and just hanging out. So, yeah, and it's been kind of warm here in Colorado, but today there's like a literal blizzard outside. So, I don't know if you
Really?
can see like the amount.
Whoa,
Oh, yeah.
look at that.
Every spring, so it's expected. But
That's awesome.
yeah.
Remind me where you usually live?
Well, I was living in Colorado Springs for 4 years. I went to school there. So that's where my myco journey started because I have a really good, a very active friend who took me on my first foray and does remediation work, and she's just amazing. So um I'm hoping to like continue doing work on the ground there because they have a lot of food insecurity stuff and yeah, a lot of land misuse, I would say. So hopefully I'm just like south of Denver right now, so an hour away from the Springs, and I hope I can kind of resettle there eventually. We'll see. I might be going somewhere else entirely different.
Wow.
California seems great, so
It has its ups and downs. Hi,
yeah.
Emma. It's a really hard place to live if you don't have a lot of money.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I work 3 jobs and most of my money goes to rent.
yeah,
It's not easy.
yeah. The cost of living out here is steadily rising as well. So
Let's see, everything's changing right now.
you know,
The world is changing quickly.
indeed.
Hi, Jackie. Oh, this is Jackie. She's awesome. She's our finance director. This is Emma and Anna. I guess we should give folks a little more time to join. I wonder if folks are just like too zoomed out right now. I know that's been a thing lately where people are like, oh my God, my entire life is on Zoom. I can't do another thing. Yeah. How are you, Emma? How are you holding up?
I'm all right. Yeah, it's really nice weather here. It's been weird to like look out the window and like go outside a little bit and then also like nothing can happen. So like none of the events that are outside that I normally would be doing are happening. But
Remind me where you are?
Vancouver.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You can still like walk around outside though, right?
Yeah, totally. So
Are you guys
it's
on lockdown there?
not exact like there's lots of recommendations for social distancing and like a lot of restaurants have been asked to close, schools are closed, things like that. Like a lot of workplaces are like work from home, like that's what I've been doing. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're only allowed to, yeah, we're on total lockdown here. You're not supposed to leave your house unless there's like an essential thing, but people are doing it a lot anyway.
Oh gosh.
I live near the highway. You can see like cars, plenty of cars going places. And yeah,
Yeah, that's frustrating.
it is. Yeah, I know. I feel so conflicted about it. I'm just like really worried about, I'm worried about a lot of things. But yeah, I'm starting to like miss seeing my friends, and my kid isn't getting to see their friends, and all of that is hard. We might have a lot longer of this. We'll see. Hi, Ellen. Hi, Kane. Nice to see you guys. Um, well, it is 3:04. we could wait for more people. Let's do just a quick go around with folks who are here and just share our name, your pronoun if you'd like to, how you're doing today. Yeah, and what's up for you right now in this moment. Just a really quick, like if you can keep it under 30 seconds. Anybody want to start? Should I call on people? I can do that. Jackie, you want to start us out? How are you doing? You're muted. I think I just unmuted you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I had to call in by my phone just for some reason the speaker on my computer isn't working. Hello, I am Jackie Burmeister. This is my first time in the course physically or virtually, and I'm the finance coordinator for MycoRenewal. And I'm really excited to be here and meet you and talk a little bit about what I do at MycoRenewal and how we can support you today.
Awesome. Super glad you're here, Jackie. Just so folks know, Jackie's a big part of what made this course happen behind the scenes. She put in a lot of work to this. So we're all grateful to you. All right, let's do alphabetical. Anna, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm super fortunate that my new library job is able to support employees even though we're not going to work. And I'm very grateful to still be in this course. I missed a couple of sessions because of work, but I have really been inspired by everything that we've discussed here, and I'm working to catch up and just like really go to the grindstone with learning as much as I can with all of this free time. I just want to like research everything remediation related. So thank you all for everything. I use she, her pronouns, and yeah, I'm glad that we have this chance to check in.
Awesome, thanks. Kane.
Hi, I'm Kane. It's been a weird time. I've been really stressed lately. I'm part of putting together a couple of conference style events, and we've had to cancel them, and workshops have had to be cancelled, and it's like, wow, I've suddenly got 6 months of my calendar just emptied, and it's really strange. But it's nice to know that I've got some quiet time to do some writing and stuff. So that's where I'm at.
So real.
It is real.
Yeah.
Wow, real.
So real right now. How are you doing?
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
go
you
ahead. Sorry.
for the course. Yeah, no, this has been a really lovely course, and I haven't properly been able to really connect with it. So I'm going to have to go back through everything, I think. But thank you very much, Maya and Jacqueline and Mia, if is she around? No.
Mia was hoping to join today. She wasn't sure if she'd be able to.
Yeah. Anyway, cool.
Thanks. Emma, are you ready?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing all right. It's an interesting time to be. Oh, and sorry, my name is Emma, and my pronouns are she, her. But it's an interesting time to be alive right now, I feel like. And something I will say is that like having done this course is like showing me like more of the possibilities of like online presences, because I'm definitely not used to it. But I think, yeah, like kind of seeing how this course could happen is like given me lots of hope for like what other things can look like if it's going to be like a couple months or more of like social distancing. So yeah, feeling hopeful about that at least.
Yeah, I definitely echo that. I'm very interested in online courses, even more so now. Yeah. Ellen, how are you doing?
I'm good. We had to reorganize a retreat we were going to have in a couple weeks for the ecosystem restoration camps in California to be a Zoom event with some facilitators. So we're going to get our computers for 6 hours on a Saturday doing a Zoom thing instead of getting together in person and sharing meals. And, so I'm kind of disappointed about that. And I miss my grandchildren. They're sort of banned from the house because I'm of the age, where I'm supposedly vulnerable. Although I feel like going out and volunteering to deliver meals and stuff, I don't feel at all vulnerable, but we have to take it seriously. So here we are. And I'm grateful for this meeting, and this course has been fascinating. And I've got oyster mushrooms growing in my yard now and very exciting. So thanks for inviting me to be part of this.
So glad to have you here. I'll share. My name is Maya, which I think you all know. I prefer they, them, but she, her is fine. And I am doing okay. I'm starting to lose it just a little bit of just like being contained. And yeah, so I have 3 jobs. CoRenewal is just one of them, and my other 2 jobs are on hold until all of this is over. So my income is on hold, and so I'm trying to get creative and adapt and figure out how to survive and thrive and have fun in this time, and not spend all of my life on Zoom. All right. So I'm just going to assume that this is going to be our crew today, which is really nice because that means we get a little bit more time with each person individually to talk about stuff. So before we get into that, I'm going to hand it over to Jackie, who's going to talk about some of the ways that you can apply what you've learned in this course and bring it to the next level. And she'll be covering some of the financial components too, which maybe isn't everybody's favorite part, but is definitely an important part of the process.
All right, thanks, Maya. Yeah, so I am the finance coordinator with CoRenewal. I've been working with CoRenewal probably since about 2016. Most of my job is pretty not sexy. I keep the financial records, I do the taxes, but I also do a lot of the looking for funding opportunities for CoRenewal. I manage our fiscal sponsorships, which is one of the things I wanted to talk to you all about today. And then also just provide general support for the organization. My background is, I have an MBA, but my background is in biology and environmental science and policy, community development. I'm a former Peace Corps volunteer from Honduras. And my day job is I actually manage lakes here in the city of Worcester in Massachusetts. So I do more environmental stuff in my everyday life, but with CoRenewal, it's the finance stuff. So I guess the purpose for me being here today is that over the course of this class, you've been given like a taste of some of the wide-ranging topics in mycoremediation. And the intention was not to just grow this mycelial network that CoRenewal is trying to foster, but also the intention was to provide you in the background of these natural tools available to help remediate some of the planet's most intractable environmental issues, right? And you've probably been thinking about how you want to apply them if you haven't started your own projects already. So the next step is kind of putting all of these pieces together and creating robust solutions. And these days, like project development and funding really do go hand in hand. So project development is the act of planning, organizing, coordinating, and controlling the resources to accomplish a project and accomplish goals. And a lot of the time we need capital or supplies to complete these tasks. Savvy funders, whether they be individuals or individual donors or foundations, even corporations, they want to see that a project's really well developed before they donate. and they want to know that the goals of your project are aligning with the goals of their foundation or even their corporation. So project development is a way that you can kind of prove that that's the case. So I don't have that much time today to get into the nitty gritty of it. You talked about the advanced course already, Maya, in the email, right? So there's going to be an advanced course, and I'm hoping to be teaching a class there on getting kind of into how to develop out a project and find funding for it. Today, we're going to just start thinking about the right questions to ask, and then share some of the funding opportunities that co-renewal has to help you move forward with those projects. So I believe Maya is going to take you through a lot of these questions to help you think about your individual projects and kind of what path you want to go on. But when you're doing that, I just invite you to keep in mind that adequately describing a problem that you want to solve is the most important step. You really need to let people know why something is a problem and why it matters to them if you want them to care about supporting it, or whether it be through volunteerism or through donations of money or supplies. So as we go through the exercises later of figuring out the topics that we're passionate about, describing impact, why something is a problem is important. And it's not enough just to say, for example, like the problem is that there's too much CO2 in the atmosphere. You want to describe what the impact of that is and kind of break it down for people. So, you know, why is too much CO2 a problem? Who does it affect? And are there positive outcomes of this as well? A lot of times funders, when they hear about a problem and they know of a stakeholder that's profiting from that problem, they're going to want to know, like, well, someone's profiting from that. Like, like, have you thought about it from this angle? And you want to be able to say that you have. So in the case of CO2, there are a lot of people who are profiting off of CO2 as well. So you want to also think about the causes of your challenges that you're trying to solve. So you want to know where the problem originates and that you're not overlooking other potential solutions. Your funders want to know why you're doing it the way you're doing it and why not a different way. So in the case of, like, let's say you want to reduce CO2. I mean, you could reduce CO2 by taking cars off the road and using alternative transportation, but another way you can do it is someone might say, why don't we just plant more trees? And you want to say why maybe that's a good or not effective method in terms of your project. So that's kind of just a way to start thinking about it, figuring out impact and describing causes of the problems that you're trying to solve. And the last thing I would say about that is when you're starting to describe the problem that you're trying to solve, you really want to use as many, you want to be as objective as possible. You want to be able to use metrics. Metrics not only let people know that you have like a real grasp of what's going on in the real world, but also a way to measure your success. And so being able to tell your funder at the end of the project that you succeeded will require some kind of measurable success. And so just how are you going to prove that you did what you said you were going to do? So that's kind of just a very broad overview of just starting to think about how to develop any project that you want to do with what you've learned during this course. But once you start continue down that path and you find you're ready to start looking for funding, co-renewal does have a few tools to help you find funding and support for your projects. The most important of which is that co-renewal is a 501c3 that acts as a fiscal sponsor. A fiscal sponsorship is an arrangement between a 501c3 organization and another organization or individual that lacks a 501c3 status. And the idea is that many larger foundations or government institutions, when they fund a project, they want to know that they're donating to a tax-deductible cause, or that it's a legitimate organization, and the 501c3 status that we have can be extended to your project in this fiscal sponsorship way, so that you're able to collect that money and it flows through co-renewal, and it's kind of the funder's way of knowing that this project is legitimate. Because we would be technically receiving the money, we're responsible for how it gets spent, which means we care about how it gets spent and that we really want to see you be successful in your project. And so we really do try to lend support to all of our fiscal sponsees. So let's say you see a grant from a foundation that has goals that align with your project, and you think that you have a project that could be potentially funded by that organization if you were to write a grant, but they need a 501c3, you could reach out to us during that grant writing process and start talking to us about, like, look, I have this, like, it doesn't even have to be a myco-remediation project. It could just be a general bio-remediation project, and say, I'm looking to apply for this grant. What do you think of this project? Could I go through co-renewal and do it? And we would be able to, help you, tweak that application so that if it didn't completely align with our goals, we needed to align with our goals, because we can't just fiscally sponsorship any project. That has to be related to our mission, which you can find on our website if you have any doubts or questions about what that is. But yeah, and just lend general support to make sure that you're able to see that project through to the end. So extending this tax-exempt status to you in this way allows you to accept bigger grants. It will lend credibility to your project and allow your project donors to write off their donations on their taxes. So this is specifically important if you're getting like a bigger grant, maybe like a $5,000, $10,000 grant from a foundation who's looking to write it off. So they're not going to be able to do that if they just hand you a check as an individual. So we have fiscally sponsored a few organizations in the past, including social ecologies, radical mycology. And so it's not something we do a lot, but we would like to, especially with all of you who now have all these new skills and ambition, to like continue to support you in this way, if possible. Does anyone have any questions about a fiscal sponsorship?
I guess I'm wondering if there's like a benefit to more than one 501c3 coming together on a project. I think there is a benefit to that, but like I have a local organization in mind that already has the 501c3 status. So would I prioritize just going through them, or would I put co-renewal on it on the grant as well? And is there like a financial benefit to that necessarily?
I mean, I think a lot of funders want to see that various stakeholders are involved in a project and there's a lot of buy-in. So it might not necessarily be that we're your financial sponsor, but if we're able to support your project in another way, then, we're really excited to do that. So,
awesome. That helps. Thank you.
Any other questions? One thing that's not official yet, but we're working on, is creating also a small grant award, where if people have an idea for a project that needs minimal funds or materials to get off the ground, that maybe we could support that. So just be on the lookout for that over the next few months, and that might be, obviously we give preference to people who have had training through co-renewal. So you guys are all shuffled to the top of the list right there.
we're pretty excited about that. I just want to say I think that's a pretty great opportunity to get support for a project, not just the fiscal sponsorship and you know, a little chunk of money, but you can also get free mycelium or resources through a partnership that we're working out with the mushroom company. So yeah, definitely keep an eye out for that. I'm really excited, and I'm hoping that there'll be lots of cool projects that we'll be able to support in that way.
All right. Yeah. So, oh, is that from Kane? Okay. So 501c. So that is
the Canadian.
Oh, okay. Yes. So in the United States, 501c3 is a tax designation to nonprofit organizations that are non-political. And so when donors are want to, you know, write stuff off, they could, if they have a receipt from a 501c3, they're able to do that. And so, yeah, this would probably be most useful for projects that are happening in the United States. Although, as Anna mentioned, we, you know, partnering with other projects is possible, and we would be more than happy to partner on a project that was taking place in another country without being that fiscal sponsor, because I don't believe that we're able to extend that into other countries.
But yeah, there's also other ways besides fiscal sponsorship too that would be very excited to collaborate with people, especially in post-fire zones.
Right.
Yeah. Jackie, did you have more that you wanted to say, or?
No, I just figured I'd be here to answer any questions that might come up. Yeah, I wasn't sure how long you wanted me for.
I think that's perfect. Thank you so much, Jackie. And if more questions come up, you're going to stay, right? So.
Yeah, I'll be here. I might pop out for a second, but I'll be back.
Cool. So this next portion is for us to really be able to support each of you individually and kind of think through some of these projects. So I'm going to put it in the chat here, all of the questions that I have for you. And you can answer all of these. We can go one at a time. And you can either answer all of these or just the ones that feel relevant or interesting to talk about, or if any insights come up from answering these questions. And then any questions that you have, and then we'll all have a chance to kind of respond and share our thoughts or feelings around what you're working on. Yeah? Does anybody want to start? If not, I have to call on you. Should we do alphabetical again?
I can start, yeah. So I am currently in Colorado. I'm staying south of Denver, but my home base here with all of my mycology and food justice people is in Colorado Springs, a very interesting conservative city, but it has a lot of young people that are trying to build from the ground up, lots of grassroots stuff. So I'm hoping to stay involved with the food justice roots that I have there, and I'm really thinking about how to learn from the mycology experts, I guess, that I know, or people that have more experience than I do. I really want to learn hands-on cultivation things, so I'm thinking about how to be most useful with like food insecurity and food sovereignty being the goal of the like more vulnerable communities in Colorado Springs. And the nonprofit that I'm thinking of, like hopefully I can write a grant and partner with them, if not like hopefully work for them someday. Colorado Springs Food Rescue is like based on a lot of other similar models of diverting food waste from the landfill, but they're working to do more food production. So they have a new piece of land in a neighborhood that doesn't have very many grocery stores, with a lot of people of color who definitely want like small garden plots and greenhouse type capacity for fresh food and just food education and compost. And so they're getting it off the ground right now. And unfortunately, I'm not in a place where I can help all the time, but I want to learn some grant writing stuff from my mom because she's really good at it, and like try to get a grant directly for adding a myco component, whether that's doing oysters outside because oysters do really well here in Colorado. And I have a friend who has a lot of experience with oysters, especially in the outdoor setting, or some sort of greenhouse. I would love to do like a gas exchange greenhouse situation with plants and mushrooms and really maximize the output there. So that's kind of what I would like to talk to my people about. I haven't reached out yet because I really want to do more research before I start doing any project development, as Jackie says. So right now, the resources I have in abundance would be time for sure, and all of these great materials from this class. So I really want to put in like a solid handful of months, just like networking and reading and looking for examples that already exist. And then as far as obstacles, other than like personal health things, I would say the finances probably are going to be a thing, but I am pretty confident that the grant writing could really work out with the connections that I have. I could get some extra help with the grant writing. So yeah, I'm trying to be patient and let it kind of percolate and sit, because I think as the food hub grows over the next couple of years, the timing will probably work out pretty well, but they'll want hopefully some sort of fungal component. And yeah, there's definitely a need to like do a general survey of like what people would want to see before getting in too deep. But I do have some thoughts from this course about what could be beneficial. So yeah, thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for sharing. I'm curious, what is, well, I mean, obviously there's coronavirus and how that, factors into everything that we do right now. And so I'm actually curious how that is affecting your ability to get projects done, and then what other obstacles or hurdles or issues have you run into?
Yeah, I was kind of already in a period of hibernation, so it hasn't affected me personally very much, but I can tell that like the operations of these nonprofits that I care about are slowing down right now. Transportation between me and the springs is about an hour by car, so that's kind of an obstacle, but the goal would be to like be living down there and where all the action is within a year or so, and just kind of like, even if I'm only working in small groups with people, I think that could have a really huge impact because they have such an amazing staff as an organization. I wouldn't even necessarily have to like meet with community members directly because they have staff that are really doing a lot of outreach on that and talking to individuals who are most affected by what this food hub will look like. So yeah, even that can happen over the internet, and I think with the grant writing and just how much time that takes on the computer, I can probably find a way to like get the ball rolling without needing to be there in person too much. So it'll be interesting. We'll see. I also might try to do some like local food rescuing here in the Denver area because I'm sure that will be needed.
Absolutely. There's a definitely big need for that right now. Do you have experience with writing grants?
Not really. I've definitely done like research outline type proposal things in terms of like how to do ecology in the field. But yeah, I would say I think my writing skills are strong enough that I can pick up on the nuances of grants. And yeah, this nonprofit just recently hired a new grant person with a lot of experience. I applied for the same job, but it wasn't a good fit, and I'm really glad they didn't give it to me because it was a lot of work that probably wasn't the best for me. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to take advice from anyone who jumps into grant writing kind of blindly, but with with help, I guess, is probably the best approach.
Awesome. I'm sorry, my internet I might have missed the last thing you said, but it sounds like an amazing project. And it sounds like you have pretty much everything you need to put it together. And you're working with a good group of people. You said there's great people who work there.
Yeah. I mean, Colorado Springs Food Rescue as an entity is growing so quickly. And then as far as the myco connections, like there are a lot of really amazing mycologists in Colorado. And I know a handful who are like more of the radical mycology, like kind of rescuing like spent spawn that like definitely could put out a few more flushes, like instead of throwing it away, like we can use that, and kind of filling all of those waste gaps. So the material is for sure around, and there's so much potential for going out in the mountains and getting wild stuff too. So just education around that, I would love to do, just like as food and medicine type education at the food hub. So even if we don't have a huge like cultivation thing going, just a little bit, and just getting that into people's kitchens would be so fulfilling.
Beautiful. I'm wondering what other thoughts or insights, or are you open to feedback or comments from other folks here?
Oh, absolutely. I would love that.
Has anybody ever done a project, anything like this? I've seen, oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say in our county, we have community gardens that have been really successful it's a one hub organization, but about 7 different sites with about 20 to 30, maybe even more plots on a site. And they often get the land donated by a church or a school or something like that, where it's, you know, a 3-year lease or longer. And it takes a lot of coordination, but it's been managed by maybe just 2 or 3 people. And they did get lots of fundraising, lots of grants. They did crowdsourcing for some of it to make sure that the people who were members only had to pay for the water to water their plots. But a lot of others, I mean, they would bring their own supplies and things too, but a lot of the stuff was shared, shovels, things like that, you know, and they'd get big loads of compost I'll put on the garden plots together. And so it really does good community building and empowerment for the people who are involved. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, thanks. I am noticing a similar setup where a church donated this, like, I want to say it's a couple acres piece of land to the nonprofit. So they're, you know, full swing with the grant writing, and definitely a lot of individual donations from people in the community. But yeah, Colorado Springs has so many land use issues, and it's very spread out, and there's not a lot of community gardening. So I think it'll be just an amazing like pilot for potentially even more locations. Would be very, very good. I'm glad to hear that that's working out in your area.
Something that I was really inspired by is, I'm going to pronounce it wrong because it's in French. It's called Centre Paul Roulant in Montreal. And it's in an urban area, so it is a little bit different, but it's very similar to what you're talking about. I'll put the link here. But it's just like everything about food redistribution, and Meals on Wheels is connected to it. And all these different projects kind of come together in this one hub there.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. We did radical mycology workshops there a long time ago.
Nice. Yeah, I think the most promising part, honestly, is that they recently have gotten like their community compost operation off the ground. So it's only like a real small part of like central downtown Colorado Springs that they're doing compost pickups, but like food scraps from your kitchen that are then going into these massive outdoor like collection areas, and having that on site as a source of nutrients for the garden plots in the greenhouse is going to be great. So yeah, thank you.
Yay, cool. All right, any other thoughts? All right, would anybody like to go next? I think, Kane, you're next alphabetically.
Yeah, I am. Okay, so where am I? I'm in Melbourne, Australia. And yeah, so we're just coming out of summer. We're just about to go into autumn. It's beautiful here at the moment. What have I taken from the course? I think I need to think more about networking. It's something that I've not been very good at in the past. And I guess something I need to take on in my life. And just watching and looking at what you all are doing in the States is really impressive. We don't have the same kind of micro communities over here. So I think that's something we kind of need to work at developing here. And I work with a group called My Community Applied Mycology and Learning Labs. And we're kind of new. We're trying to get this thing happening. We're looking at wild DNA and teaching people how to do mycology. So what have I been working on? I've been into mycology for about 12 or 13 years and love it. And quit my job, did a degree, did a master's, and that's kind of where I'm at now. I finished my master's and looking at, I've kind of just brought it all back to myself, and I'm just setting up my own little home lab and starting to get mushrooms turning over, and then now looking at other projects. And I guess one thing that really excites me is urban agriculture, but also incorporating fungi into that in the terms of like mycoremediation in that perspective and phytoremediation. And so yeah, looking at some of the course material, it's been great to see, okay, that's how to do it, and that's how I can incorporate these kind of things. So yeah, it's been good. The resources I have in abundance are time. I have lots of time at the moment, which is good. What am I lacking? I think, as I said, I lack that networking ability. That's something I need to really work on. Yeah, I guess because my focus has been looking at getting into, I've had opportunities with teaching kids how to grow mushrooms. So some of this course material's really been good for that too, of like great ideas of like, cool, I can go and hang out with these kind of kids in after school programs and let's grow some mushrooms, or let's do some microfiltration. Let's do some little microremediation projects. And then also through the My Community group, being able to kind of help people, inspire people to like, oh wow, we can do these things, and let's incorporate these into community gardens and things like that. Yeah. That'll probably sound a bit discombobulated. Anyway, it did my head. I guess things are kind of weird at the moment because this coronavirus has stopped everything. It's just like, I have 6 months I've had to cancel everything for essentially the next 6 months. And I guess there's a lot of thinking time ahead. Yeah. Strange times. I had been planning to do a permaculture design certificate. I don't know if that's going to happen at this point. But that's kind of the next thing for me in terms of my skills, is getting involved in a bit more in permaculture. And I think that it's going to be interesting to see how many people kind of click on that perspective of like, oh, food systems. I don't know how you guys are going in the States, but the food systems here, our supermarkets are emptying. It's lots of people. I know a few people who are just like, oh my God, I need to turn my backyard into garden so I can grow food. And I wonder how many people that's going to be a big trigger. Like, oh, we need to slow down. We need to actually think about our food systems here and growing more food, sharing more food. Anyway, they're just thoughts. Cool.
Those are some great insights, and it sounds like you're thinking about a lot of different components of what we call MycoRenewal, right? You're growing
Yeah.
mushrooms, you're connecting with other people, you got this group going, and you're talking about food security, and how, all these different pieces all fit together, and it looks like you're already seeing the connections between all of them.
Yeah. There was a great exercise in week 2. We had to do the map, and I never actually did it fully properly, but I certainly sat down and visualized it in my head of like, oh, right, okay, yeah, there's all these things that we need to start connecting dots and pulling things together. So I really appreciated that as an exercise.
That's really good to know. Yeah. I think we're going to recycle that one for another intro course, because that was a great one, great piece. That's helpful to know. And it sounds like you're also interested in sharing it with kids, and there's just endless opportunity for that. And it's so important, like you can go into schools if you've got time, you can go into schools and teach classes or do workshops and, help kids build their own little grow kits and do a little workshop. It's a great
I
to do.
That just kind of happened out of the blue last year. I got invited to do this workshop, and it was so lovely to have a couple of kids at the end of the class come up to me and go, wow, that's amazing. How can I become a mycologist? I was just like, oh, wow. And apparently I heard another story come back that one of the kids kind of got up at the end of the year, get together and was just like, yeah, one of my favorite things for the whole year was the mushroom workshop. And it was just like, cool. That actually made a difference.
Yeah.
I actually inspired a few kids to like, wow, we can grow mushrooms and these things are cool and they can do all these things. So
get them started so young.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Right. It sounds like if there's not a network there now, you're growing it yourself. You're going to be like the patient zero of the mycelial network in Australia.
Yeah. I'm not zero, but yeah, I'm kind of helping to pull people together, and it's been good. Things like the Fantastic Fungi film that have been getting around. I was invited to be on the panel here in Melbourne for the after film discussion, and that was fantastic. So there's definitely a lot of interest out there, and I kind of have found that yes, I am kind of near that central hub, but there's a little group of us, and it's nice. It's good. So it's happening. But and yeah, looking at what you're all doing in America has been fantastic and great inspiration. So it's been great to connect with a lot of you, and be nice to continue discussions.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you, when we were talking about the fires, are you in touch with anybody there who's doing any post-fire stuff, or?
Yeah, there's a researcher who's looking at trying to get into stuff like that. She's writing a book about it at the moment. Yeah, so there are people interested. I think, things that seem to be thin on the ground in terms of the mycology aspect. There's a lot of other stuff to do with, I think, like plants and animals, but the fungi, yeah, don't seem to get really put into that picture a lot. That's something that we have to work on here in Australia, I think, is to really, really push that.
Yeah. We are, I did want to share with folks, we were going to put together a little like reading club that's online about post-fire fungi
Cool.
and restoration. So I'll definitely let you all know when that happens. And I think it's just going to be something really low key, Google Drive folder where people can post articles or ideas or whatever, and then meet on Zoom once a month and talk about what we've been reading and learning and share with each other. Yeah. Kane, I wanted to make sure you saw I put something in the chat box, which is an article I wrote a bunch of years ago about sharing fungi with children.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah, I'll be sure to look at that. Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else have thoughts or insights for Kane?
I just want to say congrats on getting your master's. That's like a really big deal.
Yeah, it was a really hard process.
I'm sure.
Yeah, it was very hard work, and it was so nice to graduate in December and just go, oh, wow, I did this thing.
Yeah, especially deciding to do it and then getting to the end and being able to start your own lab at home. That's very cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's wonderful. Have you thought about continuing with academia, or are you wanting to keep going in the grassroots realm?
You asking me or Kane?
I was asking Kane.
Okay.
I would love to continue with the academic stuff, but I found the masters really grueling. And I'm really inspired by the grassroots stuff. So I'd really like to kind of participate in the grassroots. I'm really inspired by citizen science. And also here in Australia, I don't know what it's like in the States, but we have some major funding issues here in Australia. Our government is very conservative. They don't see the value in science. We have like a lot of climate change denying here in our government. And, you know, like we have, like our main research bodies, the CSIRO here, and they had their funding like cut by 50%, like 5 or 6 years ago, and it just keeps getting cut. So a lot of research is core research, and a lot of the sponsoring kind of organizations that help sponsor money are like, well, we want more direct goal results from this. We, you know, so like in agricultural schools, it's about like improving plant growth and not like other issues. So I did my honors with like a MycoRenewal fungi project, and funding for that was really bad. Like we only had enough money to do DNA for like 3 or 4 samples, and it was really annoying.
There's definitely a lot of ups and downs to dealing with academia. It can be so cumbersome, and we have a lot of the same problems here. I mean, I don't think it's quite as bad as that sounds. Pretty awful. But yeah, I mean, I go back and forth about, you know, whether or not it makes sense to deal with the world of academia, because you can get so much incredible research done, and there's all the equipment and so much expertise, and there's so much there, versus the, you know, more of the DIY community labs, you know, that kind of stuff, can still do so much, and it's so much more efficient too. And people are doing it because they're passionate about it, you know. Although it can be really hard to really move stuff forward without the institutional backing sometimes.
Yeah, we're kind of lucky at the moment with the My Community Applied Mycology group in that we've developed a partnership with the local herbarium here in Melbourne. So they're keen for citizen science input. So that's good. But a lot of the fungi research here in Australia is citizen science based. I'm involved with another group called Fungi Map, where we are mapping out fungi distribution. And that's been in pretty much the data has been entirely citizen science generated. So it's been an amazing project to watch over the last few years, and a lot of the research from a lot of the data from my masters came from that. It was great. But yeah, no, we have the herbarium who are really happy to help with the My Community project that we've got going. So yeah, it's good. So it seems like academia is opening. It's opening to going, oh, there are these citizen scientists out there, and there's these community projects. And perhaps we can kind of help them and guide them, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful symbiosis when that can
It
happen.
is.
Yeah.
And I guess also there's possibility for people then to jump into doing research out of those projects. So hopefully a bit of a win-win situation. So
Cool. I'm so excited for you to keep doing what you're doing.
cheers. Thank you.
It's really exciting. Any other thoughts for Kane?
I was just wondering if you have like a website or anything for your projects. Like I'm just like curious to see what people are up to and like read about it and that kind of thing. So if you have like
Okay.
like that to plug.
Yeah, I'll post the URL to the My Community Applied Mycology group. Yeah. In terms of my own personal kind of stuff at home, I have an Instagram that you can check out to kind of see what I'm mucking about with if you want. So, Guerrilla Mycology. So, but yeah, I'll post the URL. I'll find it and put it in the chat box so you can have a look.
Thanks.
I have found I've had a lot of success integrating citizen science into bigger, more science-based projects. I collect a lot of data on the lakes and ponds here in Worcester, and we're dealing a lot with cyanobacteria specifically. And what I can monitor is just so small compared to the need. So we have been using methods for citizen science methods and training as many people as possible to collect and identify samples, and using the platform iNaturalist. Have any of you used iNaturalist? Basically, any organism you see, it will like geotag it, and there's just like a community of people who help you identify it. And once that happens, you're able to see like just the distribution, the geospatial distribution of these organisms over time, and it's just a really cool tool that's actually been helping us to understand like community dynamics. I don't know how that, like, I'm not a mycologist, but I'm sure there's some aspects of that can be transferred over. But yeah, we found a lot of success in doing that. So I think there are opportunities out there to continue to train people, and there's just so many benefits of citizen science besides just the data. You're piquing interest, and you're giving people new perspectives and understandings of nature that maybe they didn't quite appreciate before.
I did a 2-hour workshop on iNaturalist about 2 weeks ago now. Yeah, and it was fantastic. Yeah, it's a really lovely platform. It's great to be able to kind of post photos of fungi, and there's kind of like a bit of a social element to it. And yeah, it's a great resource. I love it.
There's, I just want to mention for folks in North America here too, there's this thing called the North American Mycoflora Project, which is using iNaturalist to collect data on all of the fungal species in North America. And it's actually centered where I live here in Santa Cruz. All of that data is used to understand how climate is affecting fungi and answer all sorts of interesting research questions. So it's a great tool for sure. All right, should we move on? Yeah. All right, thank you, Kane.
Thank you.
Hear how things go. Let's go to Emma next.
So I am in Vancouver, BC, Canada, and yeah, I'm excited to think about things right now. I guess I think I mentioned like briefly last week that there's like a group of folks that I know that have been we all took a permaculture course together, and then one of the sessions was like Willoughby teaching like intro to DIY fungi, and so there's been like, and then we have like another friend who's also kind of taught a couple workshops on that. So there's a group of folks who are interested in learning how to do it, and we have some support from like a food security institute group in my neighborhood to like be able to use a pressure canner and a kitchen, and potentially get some financial resources as well. And so it's kind of like we've been talking about it for like a year and a half, and we had like a couple sessions, but it's been kind of like just hard to get it off the ground. So I'm excited to like have a little bit. I think there's kind of like just knowledge gaps, and so like for myself, like I've just never done it before, and so it's hard to like get into doing it when all of us are like very new to it. So we're just trying to figure out how to make like this like DIY fungi group happen, and make it something that that's working. And I guess so in terms of resources, like we have access to like a little bit of funds, and we have access to space, which is like a lot of like the time that's like what's the most difficult, and that in my experience anyway. And so it's like cool to have that, but then to like not necessarily have all the knowledge resources that we need in our crew right now is I guess like the thing that we're lacking, or that we're trying to overcomes. And like also right now it's like a complete, like we were like getting excited to like get going again, and then of course COVID-19 happened, and so now we're talking about doing like a Skype call or something to like talk about what we would like to do and like get it going again, but it might be a longer process than I had originally been envisioning. And I'm hoping that it can be like, it can move into maybe mycoremediation, but I'm just like interested in like kind of learning the basics in a way to get started. Yeah, that's kind of like what's been on my mind like since taking this course. And I think, I have lots of ideas, but I feel like I just like am like at a very low level of like what I need to know to be able to do that. Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of us are in the phase of the mushroom life cycle, and also, you know, the phase in that wheel of, in the directions, if you remember from the last talk, like which would be the north, which is when the mycelium kind of is all underground and not putting out any fruiting bodies, and is just listening and waiting and observing. And it's also, you know, the time of like imagining and scheming and visioning and brainstorming. It's not so much the time of like making concrete plans, because there's so much unknown still, but it's the time of like, just really, I think it would be a great time for all of those ideas that you have, you know, that like, maybe you say that you don't know enough about them, but like, let's talk about them anyway. And you know, if we're not, you know, worried about getting everything into action right away anyway, we're going to be kind of dormant for a little bit. This might be a really good time to explore some of those ideas, and start talking about them, and just visioning. And then, you know, maybe someday it'll happen, maybe someday it won't, maybe it's not the time, you know.
Totally. Yeah, definitely feel that.
I'm curious what other reflections or thoughts folks have.
I just know Willoughby is such an inspiring human to like be in person with, like at New Moon, just the forays with them, and like everything, all the energy is just so inspiring, and what a great way to team up. I mean, what a great way to get started. Like I think the myceliation starts for people when there's like a person that you just like see them and they're just so full of life about fungi, and then things just like take off from there. So I hope that's a good way to keep the dream alive despite everything that's happening. And yeah, I mean, I'm such a newbie as well. Like it's only been a few years of me like exploring in the wild and learning from people. So it's kind of fun to just like be in that role of observer and not feel the need to like start everything right away.
Mhm.
I'm curious what ideas you have or what you would like to do, you know, if COVID-19 wasn't happening, or if you had all the resources and everything that you needed, what would you feel most excited about or most passionate about doing?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, so I work in like doing a little bit of like ecological restoration in my paid work, just like through like doing native plant restoration and invasive plant removal. And I think there's like a lot of room for bioremediation as well in the space that it's in, because it's like a ravine that used to be a dumping ground, and so like yeah, there's just like and there's like a lot of stuff that we don't know about like the soil quality and like the water quality of the creek that runs through there. So there's like lots of like testing I would love to do at some point, and like yeah, if money was a thing, and like potentially like develop like microremediation or phytoremediation or yeah, like from there. So yeah, I mean that's something I've been thinking about. But slowly.
So yeah, so it seems like the missing pieces would be like having, you know, that level of expertise, or having experts that can come in, which, you know, you can do a lot without having a degree or anything, but and then also the money piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's interesting because it seems, you know, like there's like certain things that I feel like funders understand and will fund, and other like I don't know. I've never like written like testing into a grant, and I don't know how successful it would be, just like in terms of the other things that I've seen get funded. So like materials, I don't feel like I know how to like acquire those or like how to write a grant for that, but like the testing piece is like a little bit more of a confusing or like unknown piece for me, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot to navigate there with testing, for sure. And have you also thought about trying to grow mushrooms on some of the invasive species that you're trying to pull up? Are you dealing with Scotch broom or?
Himalayan blackberry mostly, and English ivy. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely a consideration. Yeah, like I was around for Willoughby, and like the organization I work for like collaborated on a mushroom sculpture with invasive species, which was super cool. But yeah, we haven't like really talked about like I guess that's just like another piece that is like kind of yeah harder to like make into a project than like say like I don't know like at least um in Vancouver like there is like a lot of like environmental energy, but it's like very focused in specific places. So I guess it's like a little bit about thinking about how to like make that appeal to other funders or other folks is like yeah, is something to think about for sure.
Right, taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
Like if you have this beautiful like art piece, like how can we bring that to the next level? Like once you have that interest.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great place to start though.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Cool. Other folks, thanks Mia for joining. Good to see you, or at least to see your name. We're sharing our thoughts and feedback for Emma right now. I'm not sure if you
Great.
caught what she said, but
Yeah, I did. I got to visit that sculpture that Willoughby made. There was the one with the fish and the one with the hands that was in that park in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I thought that was really, really special, really amazing. And walking through that space, I got to meet one of his colleagues that had been integrating the art into that space. Yeah, it's definitely something to consider in terms of elevating the biomass from when invasives are pulled. It's tough with blackberry though, right? Because of all the thorns and such. Just to be like handling it, it's not as easy. Yeah, but it does seem like there is room to incorporate fungi into some of the invasive control projects, even if it's just at the edge, like inoculating mulch and green waste with some decomposers. Yeah, Vancouver seems like a really good environment for that. When I lived in Northern California, we did a lot there and could expect rain, pretty regularly. Since I've been in Southern California, it's a lot harder to do that kind of work, just mainly because of how dry it is, and most fungi may perish if you inoculate them and then don't care for them, like the way Lila was talking about, how we're putting these organisms out there into these environments that may not be as may not be the kind of places that we ourselves want to live in, and dwell. So just leaving them there, it's kind of like an abandonment. So like how to work with them and make sure that they feel appreciated, that they have the food they need and the water. Yeah, it's a little tricky down here to do that with the decomposers. Yeah, and I do think that writing it into grants is a good approach. I mean, even just having grants pay for some baseline studies or some really small pilot things, it helps to set these precedents in municipal systems or in areas where people might be receptive to it, but they just don't know as much about why they would want to integrate it. So, if there was a little bit of money written in, like $500 or something, it could probably kind of go a long way. So yeah, it's just something to think about.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, totally. That is a good idea to just try it.
Yeah, just give it a try. I mean, every region is different. Like in the Bay Area, when I was there, I mean, it was also a different time. It was a different decade. There was a lot of, people were interested, but I think they cared a little bit less about trying to incorporate it at that time. And for whatever reason, since I've been in Southern California now since 2011, there's just been the land managers have been very receptive, not only to wanting to know which fungi are associated with natives and how we may work with them to restore invaded systems, but they've been really motivated to hear about like cataloging fungal traits and how fungi may be effective and how like we may want to keep our local cultures of fungi for different purposes. I do think mycorrhizal fungi are good. They're really good kind of gateway fungi for land managers, where you're like, oh, well, this helps support the natives. So maybe even thinking about it from a AM fungi or ectomycorrhizal fungal perspective, depending on the plants for restoration, could be fun. Even thinking about inoculating with soil from an intact ecosystem as a means to bring some of the mycorrhizal fungi in, and then put in like $100, $200 in for doing a baiting native plants with soil and then staining their roots and showing some data about how they're more colonized with mycorrhizal fungi. Those are some things that wouldn't be too difficult necessarily to do, could be low tech, but could provide a little bit of baseline data that might get the companies or the conservancies to want to invest a little bit more as a practice to explore with fungi.
And is that something you can just like do on do you have to bring someone in to do did you say root staining, or you can just
you can just do that yourself. There's some chemicals that you would want. I usually use tubs and do cold staining where I'll take the roots and first I'll use hydrochloric acid, so like a dilute HCl, and I'll clear the roots of plant organelles, and then I'll put them in potassium hydroxide, KOH, which you can get these pellets. They're actually really not, like both of those things, not that expensive to get, even small amounts, to make these little tubs, and you can reuse the materials in the tubs for a really long time, many months or years. And then you can stain them once they've been cleared. You can stain them, rinse them, and I do microscopy on them to see how they're stained. So you can definitely do it yourself. You would just be creating a little station for that.
Okay.
I mean, it's a little higher tech than some techniques, but it's definitely tractable. It's something that and I think there's some other, I've been exploring a little bit of trying to make things even more low tech, but that's sort of the most low tech that I've done, where you just have these passive staining stations. You can do it in a very short period of time if you want to like heat the things up and do all of that. But I typically like to do it passively and just clear the roots, stain them, and then I put them on microscope slides. So,
Yeah, I'm wondering if
That
you have
sounds like. Oh,
directions.
sorry.
Okay.
I've done staining of mycorrhizal fungi, and I use the hot method using KOH, and it was really horrible. Like the smell, having to do it in a fume hood. Yes, if there was a cold method, that definitely sounds much more applicable.
Yeah, I can put the cold method up in the drive, or could email it to anyone if they wanted. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the fumes of the KOH are pretty acrid. I've done the heating. I've done the heating in a drying oven. So I set the drying oven to 90, and then I had a beaker that had the KOH in it. So the KOH was hot, and then I put my roots in little root cassettes wrapped in gauze, like cheesecloth, and put them in there, for a short time, and then took them out, rinsed them, and stuff. But yeah, the cold method takes a little bit longer. You depending on the plant. If it's really coarse roots, it takes a while for the clearing to happen. Many days. But just leaving them in for a while is good. And what I do with that is I have tubes, like plastic Falcon tubes, that I put holes in the bottom, so then I could just have my roots in the tube and then have the tube submersed. So then they're in there and they're kind of contained. But yeah, I'm happy to circulate that protocol if that's of interest. I know I didn't really get,
we have time for the other folks to share. So I just wanted to see if we had any last thoughts, last quick thoughts for Emma, and then we could move to the next person. Awesome. All right. Well, Emma, I'm really excited to see what might come up, and wish you the best with all of that. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
And yeah, let's definitely stay connected. All right. It sounds like Patricia is here, which is fabulous. We've got one more person. Hi, Patricia. And we still have Emma, and then Rebecca's here. Hi, Rebecca. Nice to see you. Feel free to chime in wherever you'd like, Rebecca. It's great to have you here. So we've been going in, Patricia, just to catch you up, we've been going in alphabetical order. And if you have, I can share with you these questions. I don't know if your chat box is going to have the questions that came out before you joined. So I'm going to share those again here in the chat. And we're each sharing our answers to the questions, and then any questions that we have for the group. And then we're going to be providing support or thoughts for those folks. Would you like to go next, Ellen, if we're doing alphabetical?
Sure, and I'd like to be really quick so other people can have a chance. My projects are not specifically connected to mycoremediation, although I took the course because I'm really interested in including them. And I have a really broad, basically all of California based ecosystem restoration camps project that's going on internationally. And the California group right now has 4 camps that are active and many more in the works. And so there are people within the camps that know a lot about, for example, seeding wattles with spores after fire, and trying to do experiments with that and see which ones work the best. And so I'm just like going along for the ride is what it feels like. I'm trying to get this organization moving forward so we can write some grants. And so that was what this retreat was going to be about, that we're going to have in a couple weeks. And now it's going to be a Zoom retreat. But basically, I'm just soaking up everything I can learn about bioremediation and mycoremediation after fire, and in general in California after drought. Drought and dry forests is really a big problem. So you can't just go out and irrigate a forest. So how to do with plants and mycelium, how to enhance that environment. But personally, I wouldn't say I have a personal project. I'm working with this larger group, and so I've just benefited a lot from what I could learn in this course. That's all I really want to say.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah, we had a nice long conversation recently about ways we could potentially collaborate. So I feel like I've already told you all my thoughts. But I'm curious if other folks want to share anything or have ideas or. Yeah, I do think that these ecosystem restoration camps offer a pretty powerful mechanism for expanding this kind of work on a grassroots scale. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited about these ecosystem restoration camps.
All right. Well, so glad to have you with us here today, Ellen, and to have your support with all of this work. And I'm excited to see what fruiting bodies may develop out of all of this networking that we've been doing. Let's move over to Patricia. Hi. Well, we all shared how we're doing at the beginning too, and I would love to hear how you're doing and any answers to any of the questions that we've listed here.
Yeah, so I'm in India, and I have been working on a project trying to bioremediate incinerator ash for some time, and kind of the only step in the process that I have trouble with is like being a lay person or a gardener trying to convince the university that I'm somewhat teamed up with that I don't, it's almost like I can't translate my information into their language. So that's a little bit tricky sometimes, because unless it's translated into their language, they aren't that interested in taking it up. Like they have the testing facilities that we need, like they have a mass spectrometer, but it's just a matter of trying to translate it in a way that seems valid and important to them. So that's one tricky part is like being a layperson, not having the biological language to translate what we're doing into a language they can understand and will take up as an interesting project. So that's one challenge I found so far. But I'm also interested in bioremediating or mycoremediating, or actually, all phyto, the whole combining the different remediation methods, especially phytoremediation. And I was wondering if this mycorrhizal, whatever you call it, root, I didn't even get the whole term, where you stain the roots, if that helps in the bioremediation as well process.
Mia, would you like to pick on? Oh, we'll come back to that.
Yeah, so that's one question I have. And then so now it's like working with farmers who have degraded farm in India. We have I'm teaming up with the university. They have a potential project to work with farmers who have been using chemicals on their land, and their soils are now degraded, and how to help them bring their farms back using bioremediation techniques to increase their yield so that they can organically farm. So that's kind of like, I'm especially curious about pulling heavy metals out and like what to do with the heavy metal laden plants or mushrooms that you now have. Like, is there a way to transform those into a less toxic forms? That's kind of an unanswered question I still have. Like, can mushrooms eat mushrooms again? Like, can they can't, they just, is it, they can't be broken, but can they ever be broken down into less toxic forms or bound, or like, is it just sort of an unending problem that they always are going to be just transported from toxic form to toxic form? That's one unanswered question in my mind. Because if we pull out, we don't really have a place to send all this toxic plant material or mushrooms. That's kind of a question in my mind. Going forward, trying to do pulling these heavy metals out of the soil.
I can just speak to that really quickly. I think you might have missed the class where we talked about dealing with heavy metals, but they can't ever be broken down or turned into a less toxic form. A lot of the petrochemicals can, but the heavy metals, the best you can do is hyperaccumulate them and then consolidate them and have them in one place where it's not going to get picked up again by animals or by other plants or by other mushrooms. I know like what Nancy Clem does with social ecologies is when she's doing like urban gardening and stuff, they just have a specific compost pile that's for the high heavy metal plants. And they don't, spread that around, they just keep it there. But that's a very difficult question, and there's no good answer for it. And it's really one of those things that depends on the situation. And it's something that everybody has to solve for themselves. What's that?
I think we heard of some trees in Australia that actually uptake them into their trunk and keep them for some time. That's another.
Yeah, and that's a possibility. I mean, but eventually that tree will then also fall one day and turn back into soil. So yeah, it's a tricky thing.
Yeah, I think they've been actually extracting the metals out of the trees. It's kind of a fascinating process.
Yeah, and then if animals are eating, fruits off of those trees, and how is that spreading it? And
yeah, it's tricky.
Yeah, I've heard that the black walnut is a really good tree for hyperaccumulating metals, and that the walnuts do not have any of the metals in it. I don't know if this is really just sort of a folklore that's been passed down. I think that would be a great experiment for someone to do, because I've heard that's a really good one, black walnut. I know there's been some ways that you can adjust the valence of the elements so that they're not as bioavailable in the food chain, as well as consolidating them and doing biosorption. But a lot of it is very much about consolidating them and just making it so that they're not as mobile in the food chain. But definitely that's some potent areas of research, and Danielle Stevenson's working a bit on that with MycoRenewal around how to try to work with the mycorrhizal fungi that are able to be a gateway to the heavy metals and the agricultural crops, and how to consider ways that the food crops won't uptake the metals via the mycorrhizal fungi. But you had a question about mycorrhizal fungi earlier. Would that be a good thing for, but I forget what you had asked. Would that be
if you do phytoremediation, like say you want, like we have like one grass called vetiver grass that also absorbs heavy metals. So I'm wondering, has anyone ever tried using mycorrhizal fungi before you plant for phytoremediation? That's early morning, sorry. Well, phytoremediation, like if you're like, do they work hand in hand? Has that been used for mycorremediation? Like
So there's, yeah, there's been a good amount of research on mycorrhizal fungi in restoration. Some for supporting the plant growth, like fungi that would associate with vetiver that could help it. I know it's an excellent bank stabilizer, and being that it's also one that can hyperaccumulate. Now, a lot of mycorrhizal fungi, especially the ectomycorrhizal fungi, produce the same suites of digestive enzymes that the decomposer fungi produce. So getting getting these fungi that are associated with some of the plants to grow, they are symbiotic and fully associate with the plant, but then they're also bioremediating and exuding some of these same peroxidases and enzymes. So that's definitely something. I think there's a lot more research that could be applied in that area, mycorrhizal fungal inoculum with some of these other plants. But I think that it would be an interesting experiment to see, would these fungi actually promote the plant hyperaccumulating more of the metal because they're foraging in the soil environment for those resources and bringing them back to the plant. So in some cases, it may be inhospitable, it may be detrimental for the plant to get all those metals, so they may block off their supply of sugars to the mycorrhizal fungal partner. So I think there's a lot of moving parts there, but it's definitely a really interesting area for research, and I could see designing an experiment for that, but it would definitely be context dependent.
And then I also had a question about, like, for you, about the leaching down. Like, when you if you grow your mushrooms in sacks, I mean, do the enzymes really leach down, or because we were actually, when we were doing the ash project, we were actually found we could mix the ash with the substrate and get the mycorrhizal fungi to go right on into the ash, like, rather than have it leach down. Have you tried that with oils and stuff? Is it possible to mix the oils with a substrate and then have the mushrooms grow into the oils, or would you only do the leaching down, and does that leaching down work?
Yeah, I've done that before, where I've mixed the oily substrate with the oily substances with the substrate. So the substrate's acting as a bulking agent, and then the fungi are mixed in with there and they're growing. So like in some ways the enzymes are washing out because they're extracellular, but in other ways the fungus is actually foraging for the woody substrate or the oil and using it as a food source.
Yeah. So both ways, you have tried both. Yeah, we were excited that we got the fungi to grow onto the ash. That was our big moment. Like, oh, it worked.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Patricia, I'm wondering what other obstacles you've encountered on your quest to try to remediate some of the incinerator ash.
The bigger one is the testing.
Mm-hmm.
That's our biggest obstacle. Finding, also, it's like, I heard that there were chemical tests, but that was also like hard because, like, I found companies that would sell like 900 tests for $2,000, but it would be nice if we could do our own testing with chemicals. Like, somebody told me, oh yeah, you just mix some chemicals and you can find out what kind of, but it was really hard to find access to like do our own testing kind of thing. So that would be, because like you said, it's like you have to do the pre and post testing to see if what you did worked. So that was a big obstacle. Even though we have a university that has testing, to convince them that our problem is a problem, that was tricky. I don't know how someone could not think incineration ash is not a problem in India, because it's all over the place. That's how everybody burns their trash.
Yeah, so is there like a public incinerator for trash that, no, it's just everybody incinerating their own?
Yeah, on the front lawn.
Uh-huh.
Really.
Yeah.
There's lots of ash.
Uh-huh.
In lots of environments where it's been incinerated for a long time.
Right. So there's like
not much interest. and thinking that it's a problem.
Mm.
Full of dioxins, it's a big problem. Because it leads us into the groundwater and downstream and to the ash. And if it's bioaccumulated, in the food chain.
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of deeper issues there too around like creating things that, when you burn them are toxic, and not having other ways of dealing with waste in the community and things like that. Yeah. Yeah, every issue is tied to something else. What part of India are you living in?
I'm in southern India, in Kerala, on the coast.
Mm.
Quarantine for the moment.
Okay. Has coronavirus hit there yet?
Close, but not to where we are.
Uh-huh. Well, it's definitely sending my well wishes for all of you out there.
Do you have universities or places that you work with chemical testing or mass spectrometry there? Or like sometimes we've had to bring our samples back to our home countries to get tested. If you have resources, like it'd be cool to get a resource list of universities open. There was that one I found, Open Test or some public place, but that'd be a cool resource. Like, yeah, public labs. Like if we could get resources like how to, okay, we can't get tested here. Like, what, am I gonna pack my samples in my suitcase? Take them home. At least I could get some testing there.
Yeah, there's a lot of issues with that. I mean, we've also dealt with that with Ecuador a lot because when samples were tested down there, sometimes there was lack of trust as to whether the analysis was tampered with or anything. So having an international soils permit that you can travel and bring samples or ship samples internationally is something that is valuable. But I do, like, you're hitting on a real issue, like especially in remote areas and wanting to get the testing done locally and also wanting to increase the capacity of the local communities to be able to do that testing in-house. I think a lot of it just has to do with getting it down to having more low-tech systems or mobile systems like the Hanby soil testing kit. That's one that I think Danielle talked about and people have used. They're quite expensive, but relative to what they can do, it could be a very useful thing for certain projects.
Yeah.
Patricia, I was wondering have you been in touch with local municipal agencies? I don't know what those resources or facilities might be like in your area, but they may be more of an inroad than the academic university environments that you were saying earlier that you have some challenges communicating with because of the language break there.
Yeah, we haven't tried municipalities. I guess because we're the organization has a university that's connected to it. It seems like the university is easier because they do speak English at least. But the municipalities, at least, I don't know. I don't think that they would.
Yeah,
I wasn't
sure.
The ones who aren't doing the pickup waste even when offered. So like tricky.
I see.
Tricky because there's a habit of, I don't know how it got this way, but there's just a habit of letting people deal with the waste themselves. So I don't know. It's a tricky place to find an inroad, and to I think an awareness campaign about the danger of dioxin would be helpful.
Right. That's what I was thinking, and I wonder if perhaps at some point you could partner with someone who speaks the local dialect and could interface more seamlessly with a municipal agent. They might appreciate the legwork that you'd be willing to do as a citizen to outreach or join them in building a educational outreach campaign to help inform locals about the risks that they're taking by burning in their yards. But obviously that's
actually a good idea. I wonder how that would look. I think I think the awareness is lacking that it's a problem. So if people don't perceive something as a problem and then you come to try to fix the problem, they're really not interested because they don't even think it's a problem in the first place.
Exactly. Yes. So some basic education could be helpful, and maybe the local city would be interested in partnering with you down the road with help of a translator. But
Yeah.
with your project, it sounds like a great issue, and I hope you continue to pursue finding ways to work on it despite the language challenge.
Yeah, I think I've been knocking on the university's door for quite some time. They're kind of getting used to me, so I think they're certainly getting more open. The more doors the more I keep knocking on their doors, because there's one professor who's doing a bioremediation project, so I have hope that he and I can maybe, you know, especially the agriculture, since that is more a perceived problem where people cannot grow food on farms because because the soil's not graded, they don't have the money to buy the chemicals and the whole chemical farming. So I think that's kind of a new inroad that we're working with now. And I was feeling like, well, if we can get an inroad with the farming and show that we can actually help bring soils back to life, then maybe the ash project will be like, well, then what about this one? You know, so that's our latest kind of tactics to try to work on the soil remediation, agricultural remediation. So that's why I was wondering about the leaching down or the mixing method, like, because I think with the soils you can mix, they're not like and finding grants, that's another thing, trying to find grants that are supportive of agricultural bioremediation, mushrooms and phyto, you know, what kittens can do there. So that's our latest hack.
I wonder about Vandana Shiva. I understand her to be a native of India, and perhaps she could be a resource to reach out to and see where they're seeking funding for some of their
that's actually a pretty
projects.
good idea. I think that's a great idea. Of course, we should have thought of that. That's a great idea. Thanks. She's great. Yeah. I mean, she's way in the north and one in the south, but nonetheless, they may have access to grants, agricultural grants.
I also want
reclaiming soil.
Yeah, in California, we have these healthy soils grants, and they've actually made the testing paid for. So you have to do the samples and send them in, but the testing itself is paid for with the grant because they want the results so bad.
Will you post the link for that in the chat box for us,
Yeah.
Ellen?
Yeah, it's just California, but it's an example.
Yeah. Well, I'll be in California for a little while this year. Maybe I could check something there out.
Yeah. Wow. Any other thoughts or questions to or from Patricia? Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say awesome class. Thank you so much.
Good.
I feel like I was kind of in this place like limbo land. I wasn't sure how to go forward with the knowledge base that I had. And I had a lot of gaps in my knowledge because I was self-taught. So I feel like this course really filled a lot of holes that I had, and it really kind of put me in much more, like, I feel like I have a much broader knowledge base now to work with. So I love the fact that you had people that were not scientists, like, you know, Taylor Swift's project. Like, it was so cool that you were already teaming up with, you know, people in the field that were scientists. That was just like, oh, such a great idea. Because I feel like without having to be connected with the university, we have so much freedom to test and do so many different things. We're not like locked into any one specific track, you know. So I just was really excited for the course. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate that. And you just reminded me that I would love to get testimonials from folks. So I'm actually going to add that to the survey that I just sent you all earlier today. If you'd be willing to write that down for us, that would really
no problem.
be appreciated.
Yeah, it's been really helpful. Yeah.
Awesome.
I feel like if you go to the university with a lot more, I can answer more of their questions, that's for sure, that they would have. So that makes a big difference. we have to bring ourselves up to speed when we're trying to communicate with different people. They want to make sure you know, blah, blah, blah. So helpful. Also, I wanted to send something to Willoughby, but I didn't have his email address. Because another thing we found in the field where we were able to use this product called EM. Have you ever heard of EM? Effective
microorganisms? Yeah.
Yeah, they were really, they were great. Like, we didn't have to sterilize our substrate at all. We were just soaked it in EM for a short amount of time, and it saved us so much time with the boiling and drying of the straw. And it was so effective. We were even wondering if it could be used in the initial stage from spore to spawn, you know. But so I just wanted to send him the information because he seemed like if anyone could test it out, he could do it, you know, because he had so much experience already with growing from spore to spawn.
It's possible, yeah. I just put his email address in the chat box.
Great. I can't access the chat box on my phone.
Oh,
my computer doesn't have a camera. That's why I'm like, so I can't have to go back and forth. So
I will email it to you right now. All right. Any last thoughts for Patricia? All right. So with all of the ways in which we can feel disconnected, all of the social distancing, and for us, we're in shelter in place, all of that. I think it's incredibly important in these times to remember what connections that we really have and to strengthen those connections. And so I would love to close this out with a little go around of just saying one thing that we feel connected to right now. And yeah, let's just take a moment and just breathe and let everything sink in. Feeling all the connection that we got to have with each other and with this larger mycological community. All the ways that we are connected to the fungi and connected to the earth and all of the living beings. And yeah, we can start out. Anna, would you like to start us out with one thing you feel connected to right now?
Sure. Other than feeling really connected to people who care about the stuff I care about, I'm feeling more connected to myself than ever, which is such a relief. I didn't realize how disconnected I was until the necessity presented itself. So this opportunity to go inward is really amazing, and I hope everyone benefits from it, despite how scary it can be. So thank you, Maya, for that.
Thank you, Anna. Kane, would you like to go next?
I guess I feel connected to the fungi. Growing them here at home and just kind of growing that on agar and through different substrates. I get to watch them every day and just kind of watch them spread and grow, and it's good inspiration. They take their time. They just work towards fruiting. I feel connected to a really lovely group of people here as well. So I know it's kind of keeps me going and very inspiring. So, thanks.
Beautiful, thank you. Emma.
Yeah, I have to echo that, like just feeling connected to you folks. And it's I think the part that I miss the most about like it being like the fact that it's an online course as opposed to an in-person course is like that ability to like talk to people like after class and like check in and like hear about what everyone's working on. And so yeah, I really appreciate this session and getting to hear about everyone's projects and everything like that. So feeling connected to everyone.
Wonderful. Ellen.
I guess I'm feeling connected as a species to everyone in the world. Are we a kingdom? What are we? I'm not a science person. Anyways, all the people who can help each other deal with this virus and learn what people can do even if they can't touch, because I really miss the hugs and the gatherings and community. But here we can even get stronger with our words and feelings in this environment. So I'm feeling connected with all the people in the world, and that's a very unusual feeling.
I'm feeling very connected with the forest right now, and really grateful that that's like the only place I'm actually allowed to go right now. I went for a hike yesterday, and usually on a weekday, I'm the only person there, and the parking lot was filled. And I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to have deeper connection with the forest. And my friend has been doing all this research on immunity, and found that like maybe actually the best way to support your immune system is just walking in the forest, because of the oils that come from the trees, which also have antiviral properties, and you're just all the things that you breathe in while you're walking, and plus pumping your lymphatic system. So I'm so grateful that I have to go to the forest every day. Yeah.
I'm feeling connected to my breath and my pranic body. I notice how in this time of uncertainty, if I don't sit and focus on my breath and really put everything into perspective, then I just have a little trouble coping with things throughout the day. So this morning in particular, I did a lot of breathing and movement, breath body practice. And I feel like, especially with checking in to see how I'm feeling and how healthy I am, that just starting my day with that has been really good and really important. And I'm incredibly grateful for the participants in this course, and for the organizers especially, to be able to tap in and touch base and hope to stay connected. It's very inspiring for me, so thank you.
So it's inspiring hearing each of you share your gratitudes and where you feel connected. Find myself feeling this sense of glow, receiving your gratitudes. It amplifies my own. And to that point, I can say that in this time, I'm feeling more connected to my physical body and my internal guidance system, which is fed by many variables, including the fungi and the other animals in the animal kingdom, and the plants. So I'm grateful to be in this time, able to cultivate even a deeper connection with myself, and to be receptive to the information that's available to us, that guides us and informs us, where we can make really wise decisions. And I'm feeling the sense of great connection with other Earth warriors, and this group is certainly reflective of that. Each of you having such love for the health of your environments where you live in the world, and the work that you're doing to cultivate more skills in order to be skillful in being remediators out in your localities. It's very inspiring, and that helps me feel more connected and hopeful for this time that we're in. It's been lovely to participate in this at the different times I've been able to. This last month, I've been traveling and in a meditation center, so out of the schedule of being available for each of the weekly calls, but I really look forward to catching up on them, and I'm so appreciative for everyone within MycoRenewal for making this happen, and for each of you for participating. Looking forward to seeing how your projects continue to unfold in the future.
Patricia, yeah.
Yeah, I'm actually feeling connected to the world right now. When I usually am very connected into my own little community, because I feel like we're all going through a similar thing around the world, which is fascinating to me, that that we could be connected through adversity. And I'm also grateful to have been connected with other people into microremediation, because I'm so excited about it. And it was a great opportunity and blessing for me to feel like to connect with other people who have that same passion and who are working on trying to clean up the environment, which is in so much need right now of our care. So I feel very connected to nature most of the time, and I feel often a great sadness for what's happening to the world. So I feel when I take on these kinds of projects, it gives a channel for my energy so that I can focus on something positive, and my mind is focused in a good direction rather than just looking at the difficulties that we're facing. So I'm just always grateful for an opportunity to learn more, to try to see, in what way I can be to contribute to the betterment of the situation. So thank you again.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here and taking the time. We're finished 5 minutes early. That's amazing. Anybody want to say any last words? All right. Well, I really hope that you can take every piece of this course with you and use it as needed, and or spread it ideally. And I really hope we can all stay connected and continue growing out that mycelium.
Thank you very much, Maya. And thank you everybody for sharing your stories, and yeah, it's been great, lovely. Hopefully we can maybe do this again sometime.
Sounds great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing about the next class.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll let you know as soon as we have info about an advanced course. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Maya.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Take good
Thanks
care.
so
Good
much.
to be with you.